President Biden's recent executive actions aimed at making illegal border crossers ineligible for asylum appear to be deterring some migrants from crossing the southern border. In the 3 weeks since those new actions went into effect, new figures released just this morning from Border Patrol show a reduction in the number of encounters at the southwest border, down 40% to just under 2,400 per day. Before the president's actions went into effect, encounters at the U.S.-Mexico border were averaging more than 4,000 each day. Joining us now, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. He'll be holding a news conference later this morning in Tucson, Arizona, about the ongoing southwest border enforcement efforts. And he joins us for a preview. So we see there is definitely a decrease in these encounters. What's it taking to put this executive action into practice? What are the challenges that you all have confronted? And are you close to reaching the intended goal? Is it moving in the right direction fast enough?
Thank you so much for having me. It is indeed moving in the right direction. You correctly note that the number of encounters at the southwest border have decreased in the 3 weeks that we've been implementing the president's proclamation by more than 40%. It's a remarkable implementation effort by the men and women of the Department of Homeland Security in U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. We are conducting more removal flights than ever before. We are moving people through the system, and those who do not qualify are being removed or returned more rapidly. It's a remarkable feat that our personnel have accomplished in just such a short period of time. It's really important to remember, though, that the president's executive action is being challenged in the court. We cannot fully, through executive action, resource the Department of Homeland Security like we need. And the Senate's bipartisan legislation would have provided a fulsome and enduring relief that executive actions cannot. We need Congress to act, and the failure of Congress to act, the president led and took action.
Okay, and in this action, you say it's moving in the right direction. There are two issues here I want to ask you about. The first is NBC News reporting that the Department of Homeland Security has identified over 400 immigrants who have come to the U.S. from Central Asia and elsewhere as subjects of concern, and some even affiliated potentially with an ISIS-affiliated human smuggling network. That's number one. And then number two, reporting from NBC News that the administration is still releasing illegal crossers inside the U.S. to live while they pursue asylum claims, that it's not officially really working, and there's still a lot of folks coming through here the way they shouldn't.
Well, if I may correct you in a number of regards. Number one, with respect to the people from Central Asia, we have no evidence that they are individuals plotting to harm the United States. That is inaccurate. It's very important to note that the safety and security of the American people are our highest priority. We screen and vet individuals at the time of encounter. If we learn of derogatory information, we take enforcement action. We are proceeding with extreme caution here in the service of the security and safety of the American people, number one. Number two, the number of individuals whom we've released into immigration enforcement proceedings subsequent to the president's proclamation has dropped significantly. But remember that our detention capacity, and this is not specific to our administration, this has been historic ever since the 90s when I was a federal prosecutor. Our detention capacity is not sufficient to meet the number of people we encounter, and therefore we have to release people into the United States when they are in immigration enforcement proceedings, and we put them on alternatives to detention when that is necessary from an enforcement perspective. And so we have a number of procedures to ensure the safety and security of the American people. Fundamentally, we're operating within a broken immigration system. We need Congress to fix it. Everyone agrees with that. It hasn't been fixed since 1996.
Mr. Secretary, the flows of people across the border have caused the president a huge amount of political trouble. If this executive order has worked as well as you're saying it's worked this morning, why not just do it a year and a half ago and save the Democrats all the kind of pushback they've had on the border?
Well, let's remember the chronology here. On day one of the president's administration, he presented Congress with a legislative proposal to fix our immigration system. Up until May of last year, Title 42, the public health order, was in place that prevented people from entering the United States, with some exceptions. It provided the government with the authority to expel people from the United States. Essentially, the border was closed. Everyone expected pandemonium to break out when Title 42 was lifted. It did not. The president went to Congress and requested supplemental funding, the funding that we in the Department of Homeland Security and other departments that administer the immigration system so desperately need. He went for that funding to Congress in August, did not receive it. He went again in October, did not receive it. We then went into very difficult but ultimately successful bipartisan negotiations for a legislative solution that would have delivered the fixes that our system have long needed. It would have provided the immigration system with the resources we have long needed. 1,500 Border Patrol and Office of Field Operations personnel, 1,200 Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers and agents, 4,300 asylum officers, more than 100 immigration judges. That was a bipartisan, practical solution that involved difficult compromises, but compromises that delivered success. Congress failed to act. The president has acted.
Mr. Secretary, you just outlined some of the challenges the Republicans in Congress have presented to this administration. But talk to us a little bit about the latest and some of the battles you've had to face with some Republican-led states who are trying to take immigration matters into their own hands.
Immigration is, as a matter of law, the exclusive province of the federal government. One compelling reason why that is so is that it has very significant foreign policy implications. I work with counterparts from countries in our region and around the world every day to address what is a global migration challenge. I worked with the foreign minister of Ecuador just 2 days ago as one example. And what is important is that if governors of states are concerned with what they have before them, then it is imperative and incumbent upon them to work with the federal government to address a challenge that not only our country is facing, but that countries throughout the region and throughout the world are facing. It is not acceptable. It is not good government for one governor to take unilateral action and deliberately not communicate, coordinate with the federal government on what is a federal government responsibility.
All right. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, thank you very much for coming on the show this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.